This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 34, verse 1, and it reads, Come near, ye nations, to hear, and hearken, ye people, let the earth hear, and all that is therein, the world and all things that come forth of it. For the indignation of Yahweh is upon all nations, and his fury upon all their armies. He hath utterly destroyed them. He hath delivered them to the slaughter. Kal Alayim, Alahayanawa, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who teach well and rule well, who taught me this truth. Peace and salutation to the Akim, the fellow laborers, the hopeful elect, pushing this truth at risk of their own lives throughout the four corners of the earth. And to the Akwith listening and learning, Shalom. It's your brother Shema from the Pillars of Benjamin camp, here with another lesson. And through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, the title of this lesson, House Resolution 956, right? This is a channel, right? The Common Sense Show, right? The beloved Elder Malcolm put me onto this channel, man. Good content, right? But he's going into this bill that was just passed. Matter of fact, let's look into the bill. House Resolution 956, supporting the people of Ukraine. Right, and based on this article here, it's been agreed upon in the House, right? But the details, this resolution demands an immediate ceasefire and the full withdrawal of Russian forces from Ukrainian territory and expresses unequivocal support for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. It also backs the continued use of sanctions to fully isolate the Putin regime economically, and urges the U.S. and its allies and partners to deliver additional and immediate defense security assistance to the Ukraine, right? We'll listen to what this, I'm not going to play it on here. I don't want a copyright strike. But, Salak. Let's listen, and then, Lord willing, we'll attach some scripture.
Well, we have a problem. House Resolution 956. It passed 426 to 3. And the resolution, purposely written by Democrats, is so vague that it opens the door to putting troops in Ukraine. Doesn't say they will, but it's an open-ended resolution of support, pledging all necessary means to preserve the democracy, which doesn't exist, in Ukraine. All Republicans voted for this, except for 3. And I'm not going to mention the 3 because I have a solution for this treason against our young men who are going to go fight and die for a war that the military-industrial complex wants to defend a country who doesn't have a democracy. Yes, I feel bad for the civilians. No, I wouldn't be opposed to even sending more weapons. No boots on the ground. Civil disobedience time if this happens. It hasn't happened yet, but here's my answer. When you have this many...
Scripture. He said civil disobedience time if this happens, right? And the Most High is putting the spirit on these Edomites. And things are going to continue, right? He said civil disobedience, right? So there's going to be America the Great is already divided, but it's going to continue to divide. There's going to be a lot of Americans that are going to be opposed to their sons and daughters being drafted. Isaiah 19 verse 2, and it reads, "And I will set the Egyptian against the Egyptians," right? America the Great, spiritual Egypt, spiritual Sodom, right? According to Revelation verse 8, right? The whole vibration, the whole spirit of America the Great is that of idols, right? And that of fornication, right? Spiritual Egypt, spiritual Sodom, right? "And I will set the Egyptian against the Egyptians, and they shall fight every one against his brother," right? American against American, fighting each other. Everyone against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom, right? And this spirit, this vibration is going to continue to increase. Let's continue with this listening to this quick snippet of this article.
Many Republicans that can't read the English language well enough to say, oh my gosh, this could enable with congressional approval to put boots on the ground. If your reps are that stupid, then they don't deserve to be in office. But they're not that stupid. We have nothing but a brothel in D.C., and they drink from the same trough minus 3 Republicans. I don't care who they are, because here's the solution. In these primaries, and we've already failed in...
Con. Let's get some more scripture. But yeah, ultimately, America the Great, according to scripture, their sons, their daughters will be gathered, right? Ultimately in the Middle East, the valley of Yahweh Shaphat, the Lord's judgment, to be a great sacrifice, right? Right? The war of Armageddon, gathering of the troops, right? But many things must take place to lead up to that, right? The Revelation verse 13, verse 16 on down, that's got to take place. And a time like no other, Jacob's trouble, that's got to take place, right? A lot of mass death, a lot of pestilence, a lot of famine, right? Upwards of people, right? All these things got to take place, which will lead into the MOTB, which will lead into the World War III. Joel chapter 3. Salak. Touch this scripture, and then we'll close out with the one we opened with. Joel chapter 3, verse 2, and it reads, "I will also gather," a matter of fact, let's start from the top. Joel chapter 3, verse 1. "For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem," Judah being the southern kingdom, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, Jerusalem being the northern kingdom. You so-called indigenous, you so-called Latino, Ephraim, Manasseh, Gad, Simeon, Zebulon, Issachar, Asher. Right? The Lord has started to reverse our captivity. We can see the end of this thing. This is the last and final captivity, right? So it says, "In that time when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem," verse 2, "I will also gather all nations, all these armies, all the armies of these different nations, right? And I will bring them down into the valley of Yahweh Shaphat," right? The valley of the Lord's judgment, out there in the Middle East, the Levant. "And I will plead with them there," judge. The word plead is judge, means judge. "And I will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage, Israel, right? Israel being a people before a place, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land, right? Israel being a people before a place is scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, and the land of Israel has been split up, parted, and strangers inherited, strangers inhabited, right? Another scripture. Where is that scripture? I believe it's in Zechariah. Bear with me. A bastard should dwell in Ashdod. Right? Bastard means fatherless. Salak. Shall dwell in Ashdod. Zechariah 9 verse 6. Zechariah 9 verse 6. And it reads, and a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod, and I will cut off the pride of the Philistines. Right? So the inhabitants of the land, right, are referred to here in the scriptures as bastards, man. Fatherless. Let's read another translation. The NLT. Foreigners will occupy the city of Ashdod. I will destroy the pride of the Philistines. Khan. The RSV. A mongrel people. Galala ya Bashim Yashai. Bashem Raka Kodash. Shall dwell in Ashdod, and I will make an end of the pride of Philistia. Right? So we know the gathering of the troops going to take place over there in the valley of Yahweh Shaphat. Right? Right? And we know that Yasharallah is scattered among the nations and that the land is parted. Let's close out. Isaiah chapter 34. Right? And boots, ultimately, World War III, boots will be on the ground, man. That final war, boots will be on the ground. Right? These are all things leading into that. Right? Congress passing this, Congress passing that. Right? Last summer they passed a law including females in the draft. Isaiah 34 verse 1, and it reads, come near ye nations to hear, and hearken ye people. Let the earth hear and all that is therein, the world and all things that come forth of it. Here's the point. For the indignation, right, righteous anger, of the Lord, Yahweh, is upon all nations. Salak, all these other nations, man. The Most High's got beef. And his fury upon all their armies, right, their militaries. Salak. Right? He hath utterly destroyed them. He hath delivered them to the slaughter. They're going to be destroyed. And how are they going to be destroyed? Thermonuclear intercontinental ballistic heat. Right? Nuclear fire. Their slain also shall be cast out. They're slain. All boots on the ground is going to perish. All that's drafted and sent over there is going to be perished. 2/3 of our people, these heathen nations, they're all going to perish. Nobody's coming back. Right? Their slain also shall be cast out, and their stink shall come and their stink shall come up out of their carcasses, right? The smell of death. And the mountain shall be melted with their blood. Right? So nothing's gonna come back that gets sent over to fight the war of all wars. Right? But we see things lining up. You know, bills are being passed. This skirmish is taking place in Europe right now. Right? Inflation is going up. The cost of gas has gone up. Right? The cost of gas up here right now, where I'm at in Canada. In my lifetime, I've never seen it this high, man. In my lifetime. Right? This is the highest I've ever seen it in my grown adult life. Right? Food shortages. These are all things preparing for the collapse, which will ultimately lead into the Revelation verse 13, verse 16 on down, which will ultimately lead into the World War III. But the chess pieces are being moved, man. The Lord Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua is putting the spirit on the elites to move these chess pieces. Stay prayed up. Pray without ceasing. I pray you edified. I don't want to Kwam Yasharala. Wa Abad. Babal.